trust is such a vast subject, and it's a real tricky one. The most important thing is to trust ourselves, really. But we're going to go into trusting ourselves, trusting others. Trusting life sometimes is very difficult. We base our future decisions on our past experiences. So if we've had a run of really difficult life experiences, such as bereavement or divorce or children leaving home or difficulty in relationships with children, with our partners, with family members, it might just feel that life has threw you a few lemons over the last few years. And especially when life's challenges come in a short space of time. And that can be over a few years. If we've experienced maybe 2 or 3 major life changes, maybe recently we've had children. It can be we've moved away or changed career. These are huge changes where it can really just unsettle us and cause us to doubt ourselves, which we can lose trust in ourselves, trust in our own decisions, and loads of different things can play into that. But it's a huge factor in determining whether we live without limits or whether our choices, our decisions are based on whether we trust ourselves, trust others, and trust the world. We're hearing on the news how unsafe the world is right now. So there's lots of different factors playing into this, and we can feel vulnerable at work where we're not in control of any of the decisions. It feels like we don't know what's going to be asked of us from one week to the next. Maybe we're going to be given an extra workload or whatever it may be, or maybe there's going to be another expectation from a certain family member who is notorious for, expecting everybody else to help them. And maybe you're the go-to person that everybody seems to go to. So there can be a real vulnerability to any of these factors, really. And like I say, life changes can leave us with a feeling of, wow, just anything can happen at any moment. And what I thought was okay and I felt safe enough, now I don't. So there can be a lot of different fears that are introduced with that as well. So, and then also, going beyond our present experiences, or even, going further back, we may have had experiences growing up that make it difficult for us to trust other people or even trust ourselves. And we've touched on this before on the podcast, where our past experiences will definitely form certain beliefs about, before the age of 5 or certainly 7, we form opinions on, is the world safe? Are people in it safe? And can I trust myself? So if we're heavily criticised growing up, it will be very difficult to trust our decisions, because we'll have a belief that we don't make good decisions and that we're not capable. We'll have a belief that we're not good enough and that we don't make good choices. Maybe we were overly protected, where parents made decisions for us. They were overprotective, which can sometimes send a message of, I can't make decisions for myself, I need somebody else to keep me safe. Versus we were given the opportunity to learn by mistakes, and it's okay to make mistakes, and it's safe to make mistakes to a certain degree, of course. You know, I'm not talking about putting ourselves in dangerous situations, but you know, in everyday decisions, that if we were encouraged to try and find our own answers, guided by parents, you know, depending, age appropriate, of course, with that kind of thing. But all these things will play into our ability to trust ourselves or trust others. And if we don't, that will certainly be a barrier to living without limits, going for that job that we've always dreamed of, expecting more for ourselves in relationships, in work situations, in every aspect of life, really. We might be more likely to play it safe, avoid change. Change in itself can be scary. We could have had a previous experience where we moved away. It was outside of our control. Maybe it was when we were young, or we had to move away for some kind of circumstance. And it really didn't go well. Life kind of went downhill from there. And, you know, depending on the support that we had at the time, if we didn't have much support, that can feel, and you can have an association then that change of any kind is not good. Just keep the status quo, stay where you are, better the devil you know, all that kind of thing. How do we go beyond that, and how does that impact us on a daily basis? So it can, if we don't feel safe, for instance, or if we don't trust ourselves, then it can increase anxiety. We spoke about that in a previous episode. We went into a bit more detail on that. So it can certainly make us feel vulnerable. Arguably, the most important element of this is trusting ourselves. Because, again, thinking about the anxious state that we spend a lot of time in these days, if we don't trust ourselves, then we don't have any solid ground to stand on. We don't trust our decisions. We fear that if I make that choice or if I make that decision, what if it goes horribly wrong? That overthinking will kick in. Playing out worst case scenarios, trying to protect ourselves from every eventuality, which is exhausting. That is absolutely exhausting. You'd be better off to go for a 6-mile run, really, than that. Mental exhaustion plays more of a drain on our resources in every way, mentally and physically. So this is going to impact pretty much every decision, even small decisions. We might be experiencing feeling confused, can't make decisions, worried that, well, that decision that I made a few years ago had a terrible impact. That was definitely not the right decision. When arguably, I like to say that past experiences, although they didn't feel good at the time, I most of the time can say, actually, I learnt something from that. So I think it's helpful to go at it from that perspective that, well, if it doesn't go completely to plan, and it rarely will, because we can't control certain circumstances and external factors, we're going to be okay. As long as we're not putting ourselves into dangerous situations. Of course, that's not what I'm suggesting. We're probably going to be okay. We fear looking stupid some of the time is what holds us back. If I try that and I fail or it doesn't work out, I'm going to look stupid. People are going to say, why are you doing that? That makes no sense. Again, we've spoken about this before. We want to fit in. We want other people to approve. It can feel quite lonely when we step out and trust ourselves and try and do something that maybe nobody else is doing, or it doesn't feel like other people understand where we're coming from and what really matters to us, because that a lot of the time is individual. Maybe we have got something unique to bring that doesn't make sense to anybody else. And so that's when, if we don't trust ourselves and we are seeking that approval, we're fearing being judged, we're fearing failure, that is going to really keep us stuck. And living without limits, it's about taking small risks, really. It's about backing ourselves. And this is where, and I've spoken about this as well on the podcast, making that space in the quiet places is really important, whether it be early morning before anybody else gets up or last thing at night, where you can just find some quiet and with no disturbances. You're just sitting quietly, which can be really difficult because we're chasing dopamine hits all the time. We've got lots of different thoughts coming in all day, lots of different messaging. We want that feel good. We want to scroll on those funny dog videos. I'm guilty of that. It's difficult to stop, really. The cute dog videos, they're hilarious. But if we can find that quiet space where we really tune into what's important to us, what do we value, what is the picture of success for ourselves, that's where we can start to build a trust for ourselves, and where we don't let the ego rule our decisions. Where we just fear that judgment and that failure, where we're going to look stupid. Well, so what? It's okay. I'm not looking for perfection, but I am looking for my truth, I suppose, my purpose. The only way that we can develop that is in those quiet spaces where we can really listen to ourselves and try and quieten the voices of judgment, of comparison, where we're chasing after stuff, or more of this, more of that, when we haven't stopped to ask ourselves what's important to us and what do we truly value. And one of those things that I asked myself, and the answer high on my list, is being present with loved ones. And in order to do that, I do need to calm my nervous system, which, again, I go into more detail on another podcast. It's so important to do that. These are the spaces where we unlock a formula, really, to live without limits, to start to develop a trust for ourselves, where we're standing on solid ground, because we know what we're doing is important to us, and so you kind of have a feeling of, well, I'll learn as I go along. I'm not looking for perfection. I'm not looking for validation, although it's important for us to feel that what we're doing is worthwhile, don't get me wrong. And I guess, speaking from a personal perspective, I know from talking to people over the past, beyond the last 10 years, I know what people struggle with. So I kind of go to that for comfort, to feel that what I'm doing is valued. It's valuable because I know what people struggle with, and, I know the formula, if you like. Although it varies to each individual, I do know that getting into those quiet spaces and building that sense of self to learn to trust ourselves is so important. And so I've spoken about peeling back the layers, so to speak, in uncovering core beliefs, uncovering limiting beliefs, and I go into that in detail on other podcasts, is so important. It's so important to rewrite our story in order to build that trust. What about trusting others? This can be really tricky. This episode is sponsored by me. Super excited. The book is now out. You can find the link in the show notes. This book, I am so chuffed with it. It's born out of experience over the years, sitting in front of women, getting to know what they really struggle with, what they really want from life. So, this book is for women in their 40s, 50s, 60s, even 30s. Women are asking questions, they're wanting more from their life. So if you feel stuck in the same cycles, reacting in ways you don't fully understand, or struggling to move forward in the life you were meant to live, this book will help you break free. In The Living Without Limits, The Art of Becoming Fully Powerfully You, I talk about looking at limiting beliefs, looking at relationship patterns, looking at just the way we think and feel about ourselves and what holds us back. What are our hopes and fears? We really go into it. And this is going to be a trilogy of books. So this is just the first volume. We want to break free from fear, self-doubt, emotional patterns that keep us stuck. Build genuine self-worth, confidence and self-acceptance. We want to be able to communicate clearly, assertively and without guilt. Set strong, healthy boundaries that protect our energy and well-being. Explore how your past has shaped your present. We really get into it. This is about gaining a lot of self-awareness and getting real with yourself and really finding out what it is that you want from life. I know you're going to love this book. It goes into the therapy process, really. It's obviously not a substitute for clinical therapy, but it does touch on lots of things that have turned up in the therapy room. So this is an insight into what goes on in a therapy room, really. What are the types of things that you might work through? So, super excited. Grab your copy from the link below. It can make us feel really vulnerable. Maybe we've learned to paddle our own canoe. We say things that these might not be conscious thoughts, but subconsciously we might sort of think, well, just rely on yourself. You know that you can rely on you. If you reach for help from somebody else, they're probably not going to be there anyway. They're probably not going to understand. So it's easier to just rely on yourself, and then you won't feel let down. You won't feel disappointed. It won't feel bad. It won't feel as bad. So that you don't expect support, help from others. So, and that can be for many different reasons that we've learned along the way. But let's question that for a minute, because we're led to believe that the picture of success is more money, a bigger house, maybe a better car, fancy holidays, I don't know, stuff, material stuff mostly, that we spend a lot of time striving for. But what is all of that if we don't feel connected to others? If we don't trust others, then it's likely we'll keep them at arm's length. We might feel misunderstood. We might feel alone, even though we've got people around us. Because if we can't express our real self, the vulnerable bits, the bits that we're maybe ashamed of, and we all have those parts, we might feel misunderstood because people don't understand us. We haven't really shown them our full selves, because there's a perceived safety in that. Let's stay safe. Let's not let anybody in. If they knew me, they wouldn't like me. There's a belief of not good enough. And like I say, I've touched on that in other podcasts, those core beliefs of that we're not good enough. We live in that comparison culture. So trusting others can feel really scary. And, we have to be wise with this as well. Not everybody is trustworthy. It's not about trusting everyone and letting everybody in. But we can test. We can kind of test some people a little bit. And think about, if that person has proved trustworthy, or if they, if you've heard them talking about other people behind their backs, then it's probably not a good sign. If they're judging others and things like that, that's probably not a good sign. But yeah, there's all kinds of things that you can do there in order to try and find out whether this person is trustworthy or not. But let's not minimize how scary that can feel, because maybe your past experience is that people have let you down, and they don't really have your best interest at heart. Maybe you've been stuck in a pattern of abusive relationships. Maybe you've been in a pattern of the other person doesn't really have your best interest, that they're always thinking about, well, how does that affect me? Maybe that's your experience, and so it wouldn't make any sense to rely on others or to trust others. This stuff is very real. And obviously, if you are in an abusive relationship, or where it's not safe to trust the other person, then I'm not suggesting that you try and make yourself trust them. Of course not. I would suggest that you speak to a friend or a family member if you don't feel safe at any point in any relationship. But if we only base our future decisions on our past experiences, which is our automatic, unless we question this stuff, then that is what we're going to do. We will base our decisions, our choices, our opportunities, they will be based on past experiences. And also, we're kind of attracted to the familiar as well. So that's why we can get stuck in a pattern of abusive relationships, where if somebody's nice to us, sometimes we don't trust that. We'll say, oh, What are they up to? What's their ulterior motive? And again, sometimes there's good reason for that, because we know that narcissists can be quite charming in the beginning. We definitely need to match words with actions in those kinds of situations. If somebody's words are not matching their actions, then obviously that's a huge red flag. So it is a complicated subject, it is complex, and it's a process. I would say it's a process of looking out for, again, reflecting on what's going on with you, looking at the facts of maybe you're in a relationship and you want to start to ask the questions, could I trust this person? So, like I say, a useful thing to ask might be, do their words match actions? How do I feel when I'm with them? Do I feel that they're really interested in what I'm doing? Do they celebrate wins with me? Are they happy for me? These are things that we can start to recognise. Or do they, if something goes well or I'm celebrating something, do they don't like it, or they start talking about themselves, things like that. So it's about questioning, looking for facts. And it's a slow process. It's a chip away at it approach, because it probably won't feel safe. And that's probably wise, because, like I say, not everybody is trustworthy. So it is a complex subject. But I guess I'm suggesting to start to question it, so that you're not just influenced by past experiences where you're limiting your future opportunities and potentially missing out on, say, a healthy relationship, or that job that you feel that it probably won't work out, or you're not good enough for, or the relationship that seems too good to be true, or you're doubting that person's intentions are real. If they're being nice to you, you might not be used to that, so it can feel uncomfortable. So again, it's about questioning, gaining awareness. We can't give ourselves choice unless we bring these limiting beliefs to light. It's the only way that we can then choose and realise that we can choose differently going forward. It can be done. Again, if we do feel connected with others, we know from all the scientific research, and you'll know yourself when you're with somebody who you can trust, who does support you, we are far more likely to succeed and feel more content. Our anxiety levels are lower. There was a study where somebody going in for an MRI scan, they went in on their own, and the anxiety levels were off the scale. They tested people that went in with a stranger holding their hand, where the anxiety levels were reduced. And then they tested where the person was holding a loved one's hand during the MRI, and the anxiety levels were next to nil. So there's been numerous studies on loneliness, feeling not connected with others does chip, I think it was about a decade off our life. So feeling connected with others and understood, valued, validated, that we matter, that our emotions matter, that what we're going through matters, we know from all the studies that if we have that connection with, we don't need many, 2 or 3 people, even one will make a difference. So the paddle your own canoe, maybe you may perceive that to be safety, but it, according to research, can make us feel alone. Even we might have superficial relationships that, we enjoy friends, but we don't really talk on an emotional level. And that's good if we've got a good social circle. That's definitely better than, being isolated, for sure. But when we really feel connected, that's when it's just easier. Life is easier. Our decisions are easier. We can build that sense of self more easily. It's very difficult on our own, really difficult. In conjunction with that, like I say, the importance of building our own sense of self so we can stand on solid ground when people don't agree with us, when people don't seem to approve or understand completely. Important that they support us even if they don't understand, because they do have our best interest at heart. But yeah, it's important for us to be developing that sense of self as well. And the only way we can do that is, like I say, gain that awareness, find out what those beliefs are. Notice when we're doubting ourselves or we're thinking, I can't reach for that person. If I reach for them, they won't be there. Just question it and say, well, what are they likely to say? Knowing this person and what they've shown me so far, what are they likely to say? And just gather some evidence around that, really. So this is a huge topic, and it's not easy. It's not an overnight process. And so to have support, if I'm speaking to you and you do find it difficult to trust yourself and trust others, just question, first of all, how that's impacting you. Is it making you stuck? Are you going around in circles, stuck in the same place, stuck in the same patterns, feeling a little bit hopeless about the future, feeling a bit vulnerable about the future, that you don't seem to have any agency over your future? If I'm speaking to you, then ask yourself these questions that we've been touching on for this episode. This is life-changing stuff, and so it stands to reason that it is a gradual process. Seek support if it's really difficult and you really don't feel that you can reach out to family or friends. Maybe seek professional support, a therapist or some kind of support. I would highly recommend it, because you deserve more. And that's the beginning, really, is believing that you do deserve more. You deserve the same as the next person. And if not, why not? Maybe that's the question to begin with. So if you like the content of these podcasts, do subscribe. Some of the podcasts are relevant to each other. So some of the subjects that I'm covering, I'm going into more detail on some of the stuff that I'm touching on. So lots of the podcasts are relevant to each other. So do subscribe so you don't miss any episodes. We are talking about living without limits. It's a process. We're chipping away at it. We're figuring it out. So do subscribe, and in the meantime, be kind to yourselves, be kind to each other, and I'll see you on the next episode.